You got it. All right. So now I have the pleasure of introducing you to Larry Kaul. So Larry, who was introduced by Cyrus, of course, no one's surprised. He's an entrepreneur, an author, a podcaster, and the founder of Red Pill Pathway. Sounds kind of matrixy to me. And he has a coaching practice. So his coaching practice focuses on entrepreneurs and from everything that I'm gathering, he's fun and very informative. So here's a fun fact about Larry. He likes to talk to himself all the time. I think that if somebody's around, he'll talk to that other person, but at least he has company all the time. And the topic that he's going to share with us is how to connect with anybody. Now, I'm very interested in that. And I think that based on the registrations, you are all interested in that as well. So, Larry, I hand it over to you.
Thanks, Christy, and Tina for organizing this, and thanks, Cyrus, for introducing me. I'm appreciative of the opportunity to share, and I want to set a stage for something, and then I want to talk about specifics in relation to what you're all trying to do. And I'll just go around the room and start randomly bringing people into the conversation. So let's focus on the principles of what I'm going to share and your personal experience with it. So your approaches and your opinions and your beliefs about it are valuable, but not here. So what's important here is we learn from each other's experience. So what you want to do when I call on you is you want to think about, what are you trying to do right now? What are you trying to get? What are you trying to build? What are you trying to create? How are you going about doing that? And what is that like for you? What is that experience like for you? That's where we want to keep the conversation. And I'm going to anchor it in some principles and my own experience. Why is this important? I am convinced, based on what I'm seeing for myself, we have shifted into a new economy. It's that fundamental a shift. Have you noticed? I'm calling it the experience economy because what I've noticed about those who are really succeeding in a big way, and it doesn't matter if it's an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter if you're doing it as an employee, it doesn't matter if you're doing it as a leader of a company in an executive position. The concept is similar. It's that visibility through your own experience is your gift to the world because no one else has it. This is what is allowing people to build community and create something unique that no one else can do. And it's fully differentiated without needing marketing approaches to differentiate you because you are different, because you're being yourself. This is the key to this. From this vantage point, it's a lot easier to get visible. When you're visible, you can connect with anybody. Now, I want to stay out of the weeds of, is that content? Is that social media? Is that networking? Is that whatever? Because the answer is yes. It's all of it. I found 3 approaches I've used. Now, you may have found different ones, but I find them in this bucket, basically. So the bucket is direct, connect, and attract. Direct, connect, and attract. And what I've noticed is I'm using a combination of them all the time now as I get better at figuring out what I want to do. And this is the first thing I tell people is, don't do what I do. Don't do what anybody does. Figure out the principles that work for you and adapt them to your own life situation and your own unique needs. I'm looking at a lifetime of doing this stuff, and there's 3 principles that have worked for me that just show up over and over again. The first is know yourself. The second is serve selfishly. And the third is detach from outcomes. Why do we care? Why is this so important? I can only talk about my own experience. It's been important to me. And I'll just give you 5 examples of what figuring out how to do this over a lifetime of doing this has given me. So the first, I went into a little family business out of college because I couldn't get into anything else. I tried law school. I couldn't get, I tried everything. And I couldn't figure it out. So I went back to Chicago from DC where I went to school. I went into my family's business. They had no idea what to do with me. It was a distribution company. I was going to be there for a month or so. I took that business from 200,000 in revenue a year to 800,000 in revenue through using these kinds of principles without knowing even that I was doing it. It was through direct connection of being out, knowing myself in terms of what I wanted, which is I wanted freedom. I wanted to go on vacation a lot. So I knew if I could make more money, we go on vacation more because we'd have people doing the work for us. And I told my dad about it, and he's like, well, we tried that once, it didn't work. I'm like, you can't hire people to do work? It's like, no, we tried that once, it didn't work. So I built an infrastructure and new customers to do this. Now, the second thing was I left that business and I built $2 million books of sales, Fortune 50, Fortune 100 corporation sales and marketing communications off cold calls. And I did it out of fear motivation. So I was like, I'm out of the family business. I got to prove myself now. I got to get out in the marketplace and succeed. Um, and I did, and I was just relentless in terms of doing that outreach, and it ended up working. And then I could live off that book of business because there was a lot of commission on it. So I put in the hard work up front, and it paid off later. The reason I'm bringing this one up is that being able to do what's difficult up front leads to better success later. The next time I went down this road of direct connect and attract, I built a 7-figure business that is now a passive income for me, which is a lead generation and sales outsourcing company. And I started combining approaches. So I started networking a lot. I started, and so that's the connect. I started direct, where I started using LinkedIn to connect with people who could be customers or partners. And I used outbound email and cold calls and built a team to do that, which is also a direct approach as well. And that worked. And then I took a few years doing different transitions that led into that business where I got into a lot of networking and I spent a lot of time out in the marketplace. And entering new markets from scratch allowed me to build relationships with people and get leverage from their networks and their relationships. So now we're adding another layer of a more sophisticated model to get in front of pretty much anybody you want to meet that matters within your defined marketplace. And then finally, what I consider the best method for me, maybe different for you now, is in the marketplace of entrepreneurship, I have an insider connection with a lot of peers and partners that run communities and that have platforms that allow me to connect with other people. And I am becoming visible in the public forum of entrepreneurship through content, but it's also through connecting and networking. So it's not one or the other, it's the intersection of all of these things together. So we're going to bring the group in here. So let's go back to the Zoom room format. And I'm going to go through these approaches, direct, connect, and attract with you in your specific situation. And then let's talk about these principles of know yourself, serve selfishly, and detach from outcomes in the context of what you're trying to do. So let me open this up to somebody who knows how to do this first. So Cyrus, you want to talk about how you have been able to pretty much, from what I've seen, use some really fundamental principles of, I would say, serving selfishly is a big part of what you've been able to successfully do.
Uh, I think, Larry, this is what I learned from my parents. My dad was a veterinarian animal doctor, and my mother is a professional tailor. They, because of their job, they connect with, I see from my childhood, they easily connect with people, and they tried even for their job or for their personal issue, solve the problem. And I think that is like the basic things I learned from them. And when I uh, grew up from school or university, some people, as you may know, they I think that is another turning point in my life. In university, that was another uh, opportunity for me to connect with uh, lots of people, because some of them, they go to a university which is close to their home, but mine is far away from my home. So I try to connect with a lot of different people that I don't know. So I think this is like two basic reason that uh, I'm interested to connect with people and learning from them.
Thank you for that. So let's just start working around the room here. So John Slack, you're smiling a lot. You want to, let's start with what you're trying to accomplish now. What do you want? What's your vision? What are you trying to do?
Um, I am trying to support the the growth of Platinum Resource Group, and doing that
I
by
didn't even realize you worked for PRG.
oh yes,
Now I'm like, oh, okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So the plan is to grow the business, connect great talent with open opportunities. Um, there's been challenging an economic climate, but we stay positive and we're focused on um, the general economy turnaround, so we're optimistic. But in terms of serving selfishly, like, you know, you have those people in your life that just like are like energy vampires, and you just have to kind of let them not um, like take up too much space in your mind. Um, so I think by like compartmentalizing that um, helps me focus on the important tasks at hand, if that resonates.
It it does. And one of the things that I would expand on this idea of serving selfishly is that what I noticed was that when I stopped thinking about what I was trying to get and I started thinking about what is my gift and how do I deliver that in a simple, concise, useful way that's understandable to people who can get the maximum benefit out of it, and create that as an offer separate from my product, I noticed a real shift in how I felt about engaging the market. One of my principles is no marketing and no sales, as defined by the desire to get people to do what you want them to do. So I've spent years positioning companies in the marketplace. That's what my other company does, my passive income, and I don't want to do it anymore. So instead, what I'm thinking about is how can I learn from other people and how can I help them improve their situation, not being concerned about the outcome I'm going to get from that, knowing that if I do this enough consistently, um, I'm going to get back what I want. That's why I say serve selfishly, because this idea to me of I'm going to go give, um, doesn't really resonate. It's I want to impact. And through impacting, I will become visible because other people are going to say, hey, I spent 45 minutes doing this vision clarity session Larry does. That was amazing. You should do it. And then people show up as a result of it. So let's open it up. Anybody feeling compelled to speak about a certain thing you're trying to accomplish that maybe has been challenging? And then let's talk about how to overcome whatever you're trying to overcome. So we got 62 people here. How many people are on camera? So I would strongly suggest if you're going to come to a room, get on camera. So why would you be here if you're not going to participate in the group? So let's do it. Let's get something out of this. This isn't fun. I know how to do this already.
Hey,
So,
Larry, can I ask you a question for definition purposes?
of course,
You had identified the serve selfishly part of your 3 steps. I wanted to ask you, is that part of being a servant leader? You hear the term servant leader used a lot, maybe accurately, maybe not, but is that part of what you're talking about is attributed to being a servant leader?
so the way I look at things, so yes, and more. So I'm thinking about principles up here. So it seems general to some people who like all the specifics in the spreadsheet, which is kind of where we started. So we can bring it down to the spreadsheet, but we need to start at the principle level. So the idea of serving selfishly is a fundamental human principle, which is, in my judgment, from my own experience, we all have a gift inside. When we bring that out into the world, all of a sudden we get everything we want in our life. We get freedom, satisfaction, and happiness. We don't have to compromise anything, and we get results. It's always been that way. I've corroborated that in many traditions throughout all time and all cultures. It's just part of our mechanism. Now, the application of that in different societies specifically varies. So what you're talking about, from my perspective, is the transition in leadership of companies that have elevated their understanding and recognized that we can no longer capture people and force them to do what we want because the company controls their economic future and destiny. Because the good people just say, screw you, I'm out. I don't know why this happened. Maybe the information economy, where, in Silicon Valley, the top engineers call the shots. I mean, what is Facebook and Google? What are they doing? They're competing for brains. If they don't get the top engineers in their companies, so what does Google do? They give you free lunch. You can spend 10% of your time doing whatever you want. So the servant leader, to me, is someone, now the British Army does this. So the British Army, the officer eats last. I believe in that. Officer eats last. Why are you there? Are you there to tell people what to do and push them towards your objective and goal? That's ridiculous. Why would anyone want to work in a company like that? I just quit.
Yeah.
Longest I ever lasted in a company was 6 months anyways, and I got fired. I've been fired every company I've worked for, except these goofy little companies, which, I worked for in sales for a while, but I did my own thing and nobody told me what to do. So servant leadership to me is a fundamental around just guiding the team forward and releasing the power and energy of the team. That's how you win a war, right? That's how you build a country. That's how you do anything really impactful and important and inspire and motivate people. Another good example, Gandhi. So what was he, 5'6", 5'3"? And he weighed like 85 pounds. He took down the British Empire. How? He mobilized billions of people by motivating them.
Yeah.
All right, let's help somebody.
I'll go. This is Wendy Weinberg Bowden.
Wendy,
Hi,
Wendy.
Larry. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
It's great to be here with everybody. I haven't been to a Friday coffee in a while. So I'll do this one. I am trying to build up my private clientele in the creative space. I'm a creative director, but it's a pivot for me. I had been in the creative operations space, and now I am doing more hands-on creative design work. So my goal is to keep a sort of a good quality of life balance, and part of that means keeping a private clientele.
Mm. So when you say private clientele, are you talking
Instead of
about
going on board
freelance?
at a big, instead of going back into, a large job at a
Yeah.
corporation or something.
Right, right. Do you want to be a freelancer and do the work, or do you want to build a company and a brand?
Well, um, that's an interesting question. I want to be doing the creative work and I want to be building up the company.
And what do you like to do the most? Do you like growing something? Do you like engaging with the clients? Do you like being by yourself off in the, in your skunk works, creating something cool? What's the motivator for you?
I I I really enjoy my creative work once I find my way to it on a given day. I really enjoy being of very good service to my clients and solving their problems and helping their businesses grow by way of my creative work, whether that's branding or just, maintaining, like me building a new brand, maintaining an existing brand, evolving a brand, managing their communications, visual communications. That's the stuff. I like the feeling of being of service through my creative work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So the channel, I used to sell creative services. My biggest win, I got a $750,000 deal with Eli Lilly to do a product launch for them. I had no idea what I was doing. When I left my family's business, I got into marketing communications and sold that stuff. And I got a junior product manager at Lilly to get me a meeting. I flew down to Indianapolis. I met up with him once, and then like 8 months later, he called me and said, "You guys want to bid on this thing?" And we did, and we got it. And I was like, "Wow, was that good?" And the owner of the company's like, "What are you talking about? That was huge." Um, Now, how? I connected with him as a young guy who didn't know what he was doing. And I showed him the reel of the creative work because that's how you sell that stuff. Because it's all like motion graphics and video and staged presentations and stuff. And it was incredible work. I mean, the company I worked for, nobody had ever heard of them. It was four people that were top talent. And they used to work for large companies that everybody had heard of. Now they're on their own. They didn't know how to sell anything. So I just happened to be there. Um, I think that if I had tried to be fancy, if I had tried to show up as something different, with a whole army behind me or pretending, I wouldn't have got the job because this guy would have, he already saw all that. There's plenty of people in medical. I mean, people would have told me you never would have gotten that deal because everyone told me that never worked because they only hire people with experience in pharma. This guy was different. He wanted to do something different. What's the point of this for you? I think it's that as you figure out what's unique about your experience in creative work, so you look at what have you done? Is there a theme there where you're like, this is what I have. So you're not trying to position yourself anymore, or talking about your services. You're trying to figure out what is the specialness of Wendy here? And then you bring that out into the group of people where you resonate with them and they resonate with you. So with entrepreneurs, I love working with entrepreneurs. This company was called Solopreneur Inc. at one point, and it started to succeed. I had a bunch of people join what I call I was called it the virtual campus for solopreneurs. And the first meeting, they're all sitting there looking at me, asking, they want me to tell them what to do. And I'm like, these are not my people. My people are like, you give them something and they're a freight train. They're like, I got it. And then they'll come back and say, what do I do now? Or what's going on? And I tell them, I give them context, and then they run again and they'll run into a wall 15 times. Those are entrepreneurs. Solopreneurs are often coaches that just want to coach. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not my crowd. So learn, this is principle one, know yourself. So figure out who you want to be around. And then you show up honestly with them, and they're going to be like, oh, I want to work with Wendy because everyone else is faking it. Most people are just faking it. They're just copying somebody else. They're doing what they think they're supposed to do. And they're like, well, I don't know how to do this. I'm just a graphic designer. It's like, well, you know how to be yourself, but you got to structure it and be visible in the right places. That's important. Sorry, my
Larry,
dogs are going off.
this is Mark. I don't know if you can see me. Mark Mondo. How do you doing?
Why don't you keep talking? Because it's hard to, there's a
Sure.
lot of people. Some
No
people
worries.
turn on
I'm
their
the one
cameras when I said turn on the cameras.
with a gray sweater with a tea
Okay,
bag
yeah,
and
just keep
a
going.
message
Oh, there you
behind it.
are.
Yeah. So uh, I what you're saying is connecting with me because you're right. You go to a lot of these networking meetings and they're like, be the servant leader, but they're focusing on sort of serendipity, right? If you're in enough rooms, one of them will lead to something great. And a lot of times it does work like that. But what I'm hearing you saying is you have to have a real clarity about what you want to do because then you'll know what things you're highlighting. Like right now, you guys don't know what I'm about, so you have no idea what how to help, right? Or whether
Right.
you even want to. Um, Maybe you're starting to get a sense of whether you'd like something about me that you want to reach out, but to me that's the probably the hardest part.
Mm,
For me, I'm in the transition moment right now, and I've been around entrepreneurship for over a decade now. And working in corporate jobs, I keep seeing the same challenges over and over and over and over. And I'm thinking, gosh, we could do this better, right? But the starting point is so difficult. So how do you
mm,
connect the dots? So what I'm trying to do is take something that's maybe overcooked now, an e-commerce brand that helps to solve the last mile problem. And to me, that's interesting because that's it, at first it sounds like, well, you need a ton of scale for that. But there's actually some approaches that you can do that are very sort of nimble, sort of like, and this might be maybe a dark analogy, but the U.S. government right now is fighting, four or five figure drones with $1 million equipment, right?
mm.
And just because these guys are so agile in a terrible way, but I think we can be very agile in a great way in commerce. Because it's a little bit like, act locally, think globally, right? All
Mm,
commerce is local transactions if you think about it, whether it's virtual or whether it's in person. So I think there's a way about it. But in any case, how do I put all this together?
mm.
One is I've never started a business, beginning to revenue. I've been at different parts of this. So what am I missing? What do I need? How do I attract the right
Yeah,
folks? And when people ask me, well, what do you need help with? I think there's probably, if I'm being really honest with myself, there's probably still a lot of stuff I have to put in place myself. But there will be a time where I will need that first, consultant, contractor,
right.
maybe even employee. And when that
So Mark, let
happens,
me answer because I think I
how
got
do I
enough
show
here.
myself to them?
Yeah, yeah, to get somewhere. So the idea of alignment,
Mhm.
I think is important because it moves from, for me, it moves from vision to clarity and from clarity into focus, which I call
Mhm.
open focus, which is really important to understand the difference between focus and open focus. And then it moves from there
Mhm.
into concerted, concentrated, directed action. And that
Fascinating.
line is more like a circle because it's a repeating mechanism of engagement in the right place consistently with the right people, speaking in the same kind of way, paying attention to what's going on around you. So you
Mhm.
can see when somebody's lighting up. Now, what you did that's so valuable, I think, is you're constructing something out of a vision. So most people are trying to just figure out what will work. That's a problem because what the market wants is they want to know people want to work with people who are creating something that is special and unique and that comes from your awareness of a different angle and a different approach to doing something. And that comes from a vision. So you're starting to emerge as a vision, but it hasn't coalesced and yet. So part of it is let that keep coming, I would say, and then also recognize they don't know what you're talking about. And this took me a really long time to figure out, which is People don't know what I'm talking about if I just tell them what's going on in the sausage factory. I pulled together incredibly complex philosophies around entrepreneurship and inner development and integrated them into one system. When I was explaining that to people, no one knew what I was talking about. So when you're speaking as you're an innovator, which you are, it's important to understand their level of awareness around the topic itself. So start connecting your vision through stories, which you already do well, in a way that's understandable to the kinds of people that are recognizing as well something's wrong. Now they
Tailor the
know
story.
something's wrong, but they don't know what the solution
Yeah.
is or if there even is one. Does that make sense?
I think so. I hear you saying tailor the story so that it's actionable.
Tailor the story so it's resonant. So yes, actionable next, but resonant first. So so I call it a truth mechanism. So we have a truth mechanism inside. When you're being yourself, your truth mechanism starts to resonate with others. Musicians get this. So Miles Davis playing in one of his trios or his no net or whatever, if somebody hit the wrong note, he'd throw his trumpet at him, and nobody said, "Oh no, that was a good note," because you can't argue it. Because they all know they're tuned. They hear it. They hear everything. Your market is going to get that. So if you get it, communicate in a way that's resonant and understandable to them, you'll start rising. The cream rises to the top. But you got to get out and get visible, obviously. Doing things you like doing to get visible is important too. Otherwise, you won't keep doing them.
Yeah. And you answered my other question, which I didn't ask, but it's that agile nature where you just keep doing it until it's more and more resonant.
People don't like this. This is the problem. So we want to control.
Put yourself out there, right? So
We want to set goals,
Mhm.
strategies, have a tactical plan, and measure KPIs. It's not how it really works. From my experience, the creative process is messy. So it's about, I call the beginning nothingness. Now, this is a philosophical spiritual principle. Vision emerges from nothingness. That's silence. In our society, nobody wants to be silent. We want to go jump into action. Well, guess what? You're going to skim the surface of life. Musicians, artists, real entrepreneurs, I'm saying people like a Steve Jobs kind of person. We're talking about Thomas Edison in a private group I run, my Summit Club group on Tuesday. Somebody's like, Thomas Edison used to sit at the end of the pier and just think about technology and science. Stuff come in his mind. That's how Einstein was all thought experiments. Starts with nothingness and it emerges from nothingness as a creative project in your imagination. And the engagement with that starts leading towards, well, what do I do with that? Now you get into the action part and it comes naturally because you're being driven by something more powerful than just you. Because the world wants this thing you've got about e-commerce. I can tell because of the way you're speaking of it. It's not just what
Takes its
you
own
want.
life. Yeah.
There's something coming to you that's valuable right now and important. All
I
right,
love
so
that. Thank you.
let's keep going around the room. Anybody else want to step out here? I think we got 20 minutes, right?
I'm happy to step out, Larry. Chris Hickey in Chicago.
Hey, Chris.
I'm in the St. Ben's neighborhood, so I'm just south of
Hey,
you down,
Ben's. I know that
Yeah.
area.
right down
I
on
haven't
Western
spent-
Avenue. But yeah, your story really resonates me. I worked in corporate America for 22, 23 years, worked at a bunch of giant companies, a handful of startups, did a lot of deals like you did, where I went way out on a limb and I found one person in a company that was willing to listen to me, and I did a lot of really interesting things, a lot of entrepreneurial things. Renovated a home. I am a musician. I live now for learning bluegrass songs and playing those back to anybody that'll listen to them. That's what really resonates with me. But yeah, I have no appetite to work in corporate America whatsoever ever again. But that's where my skills are. I mean, that's where I love synthesizing large amounts of information and coming up with creative solutions. I love helping other people. I tried to start a sales coaching practice, but I soon realized that I'm just one of thousands of other sales coaches out there. And I didn't really feel, I love writing content. I write content on LinkedIn on a daily or at least a weekly basis, but it's this transitional period where you finally come to a realization that, okay, what do I do next? You know, how do I take this lump of data and synthesize that into something that'll be market ready? And what you're talking about is I've felt those things before, but only when I've played music or only when I've created like a perfect presentation where
Yes.
that vision translates into purpose and energy and drive. And I just don't feel that anymore unless I'm really creating something, you know, creating a
Yes.
really good idea or presentation. So like when you're speaking, I'm like, here's a guy that gets it because he's done all that stuff. He's followed all the rules. They didn't work for him and he figured out a way to do it on his own. And I just love hearing you talk about it, but I have been in a stuck mode
Yeah,
for quite
Chris,
a while.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna give you something you can try. And I
sure.
think you're gonna be able to do it because you've already cracked the hard part, which is that you understand the road less traveled. So I call it, this is why it's my company's called Red Pill Pathway, because the idea of the matrix is there's belief systems in the society that we adopt as true for us, and they're not for us. They may be true, but they're unexamined, right? So freedom from those belief systems is when you start moving towards getting everything that you want in your life. I call it freedom, satisfaction, happiness without compromising anything, and then results. And the process to do it is the process. We're all artists, scientists, or entrepreneurs, in my judgment, period. Every human being, that's just part of what we are. We're creators. We're creating our reality all the time. Creating a song is creating a reality. That's how Taylor Swift did it. It's amazing what she did. She busted through. She basically said to everybody, yeah, I'm going to say this clearly, fuck you is what she said. And she did her documentary and then she did her tour because she's like, I'm not buying into what you think of me. I don't care anymore. She had to go away though. Now this is the point is she had to go away to get there. I had to go away to get there. September 20th, 2025 a.m. I'm exhausted by my business. It was killing me. Um, we were struggling. We made it through the pandemic. I was out in the marketplace trying to figure out, is there another way I can do this? And I saw it on LinkedIn with people who were sharing their experience. They're making millions of dollars in the public forum. And I'm like, I want to do that. I don't want to do this lead gen sales thing anymore, working for these tech founder CEOs who just want to know every month, how many leads did you get me and what was the ROI? And I'm like, I just don't ever want to be in one more of those conversations. So I started delegating more responsibility. I'm out in the public forum, and then the business collapsed on me financially. So I'm like, I'd have to go back to that business now. It was killing me to even think I was going to have to do that. And I told the two guys who were working for me, I'm like, I can't afford you guys anymore. Now, I have a way of hiring where I can get people I can afford and bootstrapped companies. I won't get into that right now, but one of them, Glenn's like, oh, I'll do it. And I'm like, you want to do this? And he's like, oh, yeah, this company's on. He says, I totally believe in this company. I said, I don't. Like, I don't want no part of it anymore. I'm tired of chasing people and I'm tired of I call him the CEO whisperer. I hate doing that. I just want to tell people the truth. He wants to get them where he wants to get them. He's the consigliere. So that's his thing. So I was like, all right, you take the company. Now I still own it. I control the checking account and all that, but I haven't worked in that company for 3.5 years. What did I do? I started spending 30 minutes a day with myself every day. And I started paying attention to what was going on inside me. And I did it on walks. I'm still doing it. That was the secret answer. Now I've created a 5-step process that took me a few years to do, and I'll give it to you here. It's very simple. So the first step is the check-in. which is, and you know how to do this as an artist, where you're just like, what's going on? Now it works like CPG chat. You're prompting yourself. There's two parts of yourself. You have your kind of mind, the part of yourself I'd call it the object, the sort of the idiot. So this part of my mind doesn't know what it's doing, and it's always got a problem. Now there's another part of my mind that knows everything and always has an answer. So the goal in the check-in is to activate the deeper self and the part of my mind that has the answer for me. That's where the imagination and the vision comes from. Beginning that dialogue for me was the first part of the check-in. The second, or the daily 30-minute practice. The second part is the experience part. What happened with me is I checked in, is feelings would come up. And I started, instead of trying to fix them or work on them or suppress them, I started saying, what is this? Why is this here? I started to experience them, know what it was, and release it. That's step two. Now, everyone's going to find their own way to this. Again, don't copy me. These are principles. And I validated these in all these books. I read books for validation of my own experience, not to learn anything. The third part of it is the vision. Now you're writing the song. What's the song for you? It's some kind of company or something. Now there's companies that are run by incredibly enlightened people today. You find a company that wants to hire you that's the right fit. You don't know how. Les Brown has this saying, is how is not my business. Bob Proctor, same thing. See these themes, right? So Bob Proctor's like, the most successful in the people in the world know they're going to be successful. They just don't know how it's going to happen. So you got to get yourself out of the what is it? It doesn't matter. It's the vision connection that matters. That's the third step. The fourth step, I call it the board of directors meeting, where now you've kind of opened yourself up a little bit. Now the subject, the intelligence in you, the true self in you takes over. So I'm saying to my true self, tell me what to do, because I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. And I get answers. Now I got to listen to the answers and take the appropriate action. The fifth step, it sounds like a lot, but it's actually not. When you start practicing it and finding your own way to it. Everyone has their own way, not my way. The fifth step is help me do it. And I ask for help because I know, I don't know how to do this. I can't see what's coming. I can't connect the dots yet. I'm in the middle of the transition. So this is the middle of the transition. This is the hard part. When you start liking the hard part, you lean into the positivity of the emotion, it will elevate you forward and the answers will start to come. If you detach from the outcome and the craving for the result. I'm saying that from my own experience, as opposed to saying this is some hard and fast rule. So you find your own way to it then.
Okay. Thank you. 5
10 minutes.
5 steps is not too many steps. That's a good amount.
Larry, this is Mark again. I just want to interject with a quick quote because this really resonates with me. John Wooden, American basketball coach, has this really amazing quote that says, "Do not let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do." And it sounds like what you're saying is, look, you have this vision, you have this light, do what you can, close the gap, seek help from others and just keep moving forward. And that's that creative process that gets you to where you want to be.
Yes.
I
So
like that.
as I was doing this, I noticed the fight. This is the fight. So the fight is, let me think of an example. So I'm trying to figure out, after Solopreneur Inc. exhausted me. So this was January, February of 2022, what to do. I'm going to go back to my other company and close down all this stuff because, my wife's just like, what the hell, man? Like, start making some money here. Like, it's ridiculous. You've been at this thing for 2 years. you know, and I'm like, well, I can't, I don't want to. And then I did. I was like, I'm just closing. I'm sick of these people. I'm sick of this coaching bullshit. You know, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm sick of this social media stuff, LinkedIn, all of it. I just want to close it down. I'll go back to my company, go after the money, you know. And I couldn't do it. So I'm on one of my walks and I'm like, what do I do? And the answer came of, what do you want? And what I wanted was something that would work, meaning I wanted to build something that would elevate the other person so it would have a massive immediate impact. I didn't want to create another company where people would show up at a meeting and say, I don't know how to do this. And then I had to spoon feed it to them. I'm like, I don't work that way. I know people who are like that. They love doing that. They like to coach in that way. Like they want to work people through all these minute confusions and problems. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to give you the principles. You make it happen. You come back to me. We work through it, you know, and we do it as a group. So I'm not just the expert. It's the whole group doing it together. All of a sudden, this idea for Red Pill Pathway came automatically, right? Willie Nelson get drunk, he'd wander around, he'd smoke weed, and songs would come to him. And I was like, oh, I'll keep going with that. And the 8 weeks for this program has been filling in ever since, and then kind of completed when I launched it on September 20th, 2020 or 2023. Now that process is hard for people because they want certainty, security. So that's the part of yourself the Wooden's talking about that's interfering. So that part's saying, no, 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 no. No, go run and get a job. No, 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 this isn't going to work. This is not a good idea. And then you look around and people are telling you, well, what you're doing is not going to work. It's impossible. You know, I'm like, but I get to the point now where I don't listen to anybody else anymore. I pay attention to what they're saying, but I don't listen to anybody. But that's a
Yeah,
great.
yeah, it's a great point because yeah, I know one of the things I guess I'm working on is like the to go back in person, to go to uh hybrid or remote and a little more a more hybrid or remote. And used to have a coach who I almost felt like you're talking about about coaching and about how I can't quite say she was putting pen to paper and candlelight, like she was that dated. She did know how to use an iPhone, but I saw something for an AI chief, and I thought about calling her and say, "You got to help me become the AI chief," and stress her out. She's in her 70s, but age is a number. so
Right.
so that was one thing I was
You know, that's
pulling
what so I would say this too, is this idea, again, we're talking about the Wooden thing, I think is oh, I don't know how to do it. I'm too old or I am. Well, have you made an attempt? So, and I didn't know how to do any of this social media stuff, and LinkedIn gave me one of these entrepreneur top voices, and I've been at it for 4 years, and I had no idea what I was doing. I just kind of followed what I liked doing, and I like connecting with people. And on social media, what we're doing, and some of you may be doing this too, is we're connecting through the messaging feature. So I'll see somebody, they do an incredible post, and I'll comment on the post, and then I'll say, I love that post. Here's why. And they respond, and now we're chatting back and forth. And then all of a sudden, maybe we're on a call, or they come to an event I host, or I go to one of the things there. And then I start getting invited to do things. And this is how these systems work, but you got to put yourself out there, like we were talking about before, where people know who you are. So you're visible and clear. And it's got to come from unique place, or you just seem like another person trying to sell something, right? And I think we're just done with this. I call it the end of the marketing and sales era. It's like, to me, I used to I've worked in my marketing and sales my whole life, and I call it the be like Mike era, where you got these people up here, be like me, do it like me, because I built a 7-figure business with a passive income. And, you know, I'm like, that's all you did? And now I'm going to do it like you and fail, right? You didn't copy anybody, did you? I'm going to put something in the chat here. And I'm offering this to anybody. It's not part of my sales funnel. Some of you will think it is because you're projecting that onto me. But honestly, I'm giving this away because it helps me. I improve myself. I elevate myself. Some people may decide to do business with me. That's fine. That's up to them. I don't go there though. It's available. But the point is 45 minutes and we go through this process and get into vision and clarity. And I'll do that with anybody as long as I have availability. So sometimes that's an issue, but I put the link to the website for that for anybody who's interested in starting to do these things. How does it help me? I need to say that so you don't think I'm funneling you into my product. It helps me because you're going to tell other people and maybe you'll comment on it publicly and say, wow, that really helped. And then somebody shows up, somebody who has a $10 million company and says, I'm sick of this. And I'm like, oh, you're my customer because they saw your comment, right? That's called detaching from results, right? Do I want results? Yeah, well, of course I do. Very ambitious. Am I going to force the results? No, I spent my whole life forcing results. I can't do it anymore. It's exhausting.
Larry, is this about putting yourself in reasonably high probability situations, but realizing that it's not necessarily going to happen, and it's more like the more you do it, the more you'll succeed? Or
Yes.
because I'm having a hard time with detaching from outcomes, because as a product
Oh.
person, it's all about the outcomes.
It's so hard. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is on the battlefield with Arjuna, and Krishna, God manifested in the plane of existence, is trying to explain to Arjuna how to detach from the outcome of the battle. So Arjuna is trying to figure out, if I fight, I'm killing my brothers, which he was. This is the human condition analogy. And if I don't fight, they're going to kill me. And what's the lesson from Krishna's point of view is detach from the outcome. That's an extreme example that's telling. How do you detach from the outcome? For me, second part of my daily practice got me there. And I am there now, but I go back sometimes, but I know immediately. I'm like, oh, you're doing it again. Stop doing that. Because you're going to push the results away if you keep doing that, because people are going to know you're out for yourself. They're going to smell it. You're like, oh, it's another one of these marketer guys with the coaching business. So the experience and experiencing it and releasing it was key. Now, if anybody wants to learn more about this, there's a guy by the name of Michael Singer who wrote a book called The Surrender Experiment. That explains how to do it. There's a guy named David Hawkins, who's been incredibly, I get emotional when I think about David Hawkins. Changed my life. Release your experiences. The feelings have to come out. This is what they're teaching. This is what they're teaching. This is what I'm telling people too. That's the detachment part. That leads to detachment, because all of a sudden you realize I don't have to have this thing I'm chasing to be okay. I'm already okay. You can't do that if you're suppressing the feeling that's coming up. You don't need to go to a therapist and fix yourself. Now, I should say I don't need to go to a therapist and fix myself. There's nothing wrong with me. So I'm not a disease looking for a cure or a problem looking for a solution. I have to experience what's going on inside me. Now, if you need somebody to help you do that, I don't do that, but I know a lot of people who do. My friend who helped me do that is the best in the world. I mean, she studied with Byron Katie and some of these really top people. That process is about truth. It's about who's the jerk in the room? It's me. And then I'm like, oh, and I feel bad. I release the feeling and I'm healing myself through truth, right? That's how you get to detachment. Otherwise, there's this craving and it's like, I got to make money now because my wife, or I don't want to lose my house. I lived like that for years.
Wow. Wow, Larry, thank you so much.
Thanks, Tina.
I got caught up listening to you that I didn't pay attention to the time. So we are out of time, everyone. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your stories and working through them with us. And Larry, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your knowledge with us. This has been really enlightening. So
Thank you.
everyone has a great weekend, and we will send a follow-up email with all the details to to connect with Larry, and I would recommend everybody does so. This has been really enlightening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks all.